This is Excalibur Heavy Battlecruiser. And as you definitely know by now, the Vorpal update is right around the corner. And it brings in some really cool things like swords, Void Slice, the new antimatter rounds, and a whole bunch of changes to interactions and balance changes as well. Among these balance changes is sadly going to be a nerf to our homeboy, Spectre. But to be honest, after knowing how OP this build is, this nerf was honestly warranted. Now the weapon we're going to use is obviously going to be Salvo, because we're going to be playing what is possibly the most overpowered build in Nova Drift, S5. Now the 5 S's stands for Super Singular Strike Spectre Salvo. And the Super will make a lot more sense as I go on with the build. Obviously right now it's not that super, but eventually it'll make way more sense. Now normally when you pick a Salvo and Amp build, you probably expect something like Battery, or Courser, or Assault. But here, we're going for Spectre. Because Spectre's cloaking ability is busted. If you have the patience to cloak, it greatly enhances my damage. And this applies to all of the missiles being launched in this volley. So yeah, you can already see why this would be pretty powerful. Not to mention that me being cloaked makes enemies not know where I am, because of course it's an invisibility feature. In a game where this is the only ship that's invisible, so it will be kind of rough. Now thankfully Chimeric is kind of listening to this by changing the enemy's enemy behavior so that they are more capable of hunting down a Spectre, a cloaked Spectre, as they will utilize different attack behaviors to better weed out the position. And that, when combined with some other nerfs to Spectre directly, will mean that this build will no longer be as OP as it once it is right now. With that being said, it's time for me to get the body gear upgrades. And obviously I want to go for Bravado, because Spectre is one of the biggest benefactors from body gear power increases. It's up there with the likes of Leviathan and Hullbreaker. Next up we'll be taking Payload, because honestly fire rate doesn't matter all that much. Instead, the damage on my missiles do, and Payload is a 30% damage increase. We're obviously gonna take Ataraxia, because we gotta take advantage of those Ataraxia stacks and further enhance my DPS. Now I will be keeping 5 levels stacked up, because 5 levels is where I get 30% body gear power bonus. And that bonus translates very well to Spectre. Not only in terms of increasing my damage, but also in terms of cloaking faster. So I have to wait less before I'm cloaked. Next up, I'm gonna take Velocity, because Snipe is a really good option for Salvo. Because Salvo is a weapon that doesn't deteriorate over distance. And speaking of Snipe, I appreciate it being shown up. Now next up we'll be taking Bavali, because Fusillade is another pretty strong option for Salvo. With that done, now I can pick up something like Splinter. And Splinter may be kind of overkill right now, especially when it comes to crowd control, as I'm firing a whole bunch of missiles at once. But eventually it'll make more sense as well. Next up, we'll take Focus Fire because we're going for Barrage. We really want to maximize the number of missiles I'm shooting out. Another thing I like to take is Skirmish, because Skirmish will give me access to stuff like Terminate and Blitz, along with Essence Sap. Alright, time to crack open this giant station. The giant purple donut is not exactly holding up to my barrage. And I don't even actually have barrage. Also, sorry for the speech issues there. But I haven't actually recorded the video in a long time, which I am very sorry for. I was focusing on other things, including my tutoring lessons, which greatly reduced the amount of time I could spend making a video. I was tutoring for IT, and IT is a pretty challenging subject, depending on which field, which flavor of IT we're talking about. Next up, we'll take Blast Radius, because we're gonna go for antimatter rounds. And I know that antimatter rounds right now is kind of bland, but for Salvo at least, it is a pretty worthwhile increase. In fact, one of the main reasons why antimatter rounds is getting such a big rework is that Salvo honestly gets too much of a free upgrade in terms of damage from antimatter rounds. Since you only take self-damage once, and you fire a whole bunch of missiles, those missiles being fired all at once gets all of the benefits from antimatter rounds. And honestly, it does make sense why it's being changed. So that there will be more consequence for you taking AMR on Salvo. Along with that, AMR in general will have new functions, such as being able to intercept enemy projectiles. And that can open up some really interesting builds in the future. As for right now though, I still like it. At least on this build. And you know what? I actually have 10 levels stockpiled up, which means I am going to get a great increase in damage, not just from Salvo's, not just from Spectre's powers, but also from Ataraxia itself, where 10 levels is where you get double dipping bonuses and stuff. It gets pretty wild. Now that I have 11 level stockpile, I can actually upgrade. And from here, I'll take Concentrated Blast, and also Antimatter rounds, as I stated I would get. Thankfully took out that Cherub, and also took out Scion in another volley. And there we have Fusillade. Uh-oh. Gotta fight a mini-boss here. This one's gonna be pretty tough, isn't it? Never mind, not that tough. Yeah, I definitely fire way more missiles than before, even if said missile is way weaker than before. With that done, I can take Revelation. And from Revelation, I can get some really cool wild mods, such as Evo Niche and Grandeur. Because remember, Spectre's body gear power scale with my level as well. Now, interestingly enough, although Spectre is overall getting a nerf, Spectre is actually getting a buff in terms of body gear, in terms of base body gear. It's just that its body gear powers will no longer scale as much with level count. So, in the future, Evo Niche will take precedence over Grandeur. Right now, though, it's quite the toss-up between the two. Next up, we'll take Targeting, because I do want to make sure my missiles homing better. There's also Homing Strike, which will also make sense later down the line. And look at that, we get lucky with Explosive Growth, and we can combine the two to have 6 wild mods at once. Well, time to beat apart the giant armored orange clam. This guy's not really that tough. Alright, time to end his career. And dodge those bullets, that's the most challenging part about this boss fight. With that done, now I can take out the rest of these little critters. Here, we shall take Mastery. It's a good way of increasing my damage. Even though Splinters managed to destroy the other Hammerhead side. Uh-oh. It's a bulwark, and I gotta take it out from behind. With that done, I can take out the rest of the enemies. Blitz is pretty cool, but honestly, there are better things I can pick up, like Terminate. There goes the Hammerhead escorts. Now this bulwark itself is gonna get crumpled apart. We're of course gonna take Essence Sap. Pretty impressive. Now I'm going to crumple apart this formation as well. That went pretty well as well. I also appreciate Recursor playing in the background, because I am doing a whole bunch of damage with this monster of a build. Fortunately, there goes my shield. Alright then, now I can re-roll around. Or you know what? I can actually winnow away all of these mods because I don't need them. And 3 of these mods are actually base mods, so it can actually be pretty efficient with this banish. There we go. Champion Juggernaut down. I'll also be taking Homing Strike. And now we have Rapid Fire, which should lead to Burst Fire and then Barrage. And Barrage should help me out a lot, because it has this really cool bonus of plus 10 base damage increase per projectile. And for me, it's a big good benefit, because I am spewing out a lot of missiles. There we go, Seraph is also down. I really do want to know if we're actually the good guys or the bad guys in Nova Drift. And the Nova Drift door is something that we can only speculate at this point. Eventually, this speculation will become canon or non-canon. As Chimeric is still working on this game, and this game is still not complete, even though we are actually closer to the days of it being out of early access than it being early access. Well then, there's rapid fire, and look at this, we get absurdly lucky with grandeur. Here we go. Now I can get hull strength, and honestly, I will only get honestly, I'll keep the 20 ataraxia stacks, just because hyper boost really increases my stockpile rate. It really is bonkers, isn't it? Now the downside is I am very slow. But that's a price you gotta pay for having a shit ton of levels and being sick. Not to mention I'm doing a whole bunch of damage to enemies. I managed to destroy that elite juggernaut really quickly. Alright then, I'm going to re-roll around and see what I can get. There's Calibrate, and that's a good option. You know, it's crazy when, even without Singular Strike, I'm doing thousands upon thousands of damage per missile. That's the power of Ataraxia skilling, boys. Ow. I happened to be right on the path. I was drifting towards it. Alright then. These mods are not really worth it. Except for Juggernaut. Because this will unlock the path to Singular Strike. Now I face the downside of being even slower. In fact, I am ridiculously slow. I am the chunky stealth person. Alright then, time to destroy the crap out of these guys. And there we go, Singular Strike. Time to absolutely obliterate these people. You know I have obscene firepower when even the word absolute obliteration seems like underselling the point. The power. It's too much! Alright then, I'm going to re-roll again and look for Barrage. Well. It looks like Barrage needed a bunch of re-rolls to obtain. $55k damage. We definitely are looking at a ridiculous build here. Not only that, this is a ridiculous build with ridiculously good RNG. Now the downside of me taking Singular Strike is my crowd control is not as good as before. Which is why I took steps like Homing Strike and Splinter to somewhat counteract that. I managed to one-cycle both Thion and a Champion Juggernaut. This build really is OP. Just the homing strike projectiles were enough to take down Champion Juggernaut. This really is some obscene amount of firepower. Now I shall try going for Obsession and Evo niches. Because from there, unfortunately, my luck wasn't that good. But to be fair, I had so much good luck back then that I don't really care at this point. Like, why would I give that much of a shit about Evo niche when I have 6 grandeurs? Thankfully, none of them got shielded, and I can just take this guy out casually. My knockback with the weapons is so ridiculous, it just yeets them across the screen. Get destroyed, Seraph and Bulwark. Well, that guy survived, but not for long. Sometimes enemies do get lucky, and they survive one salvo. But not much more. I'm still looking forward to the day when I stack up so much firepower that I can one-cycle Seraph. If I manage to do it, I will be incredibly satisfied. Obviously, Seraph the Titan does not stand a chance against this monster. $72,000 damage. This is the kind of damage you would expect from a giant, singular railgun blast, and yet it's coming from one missile. Granted, not all of the missiles are that powerful, but still. Those are the damage figures you would expect out of a bunch of railgun shots. And here, I'm just deploying them left and right. And the best part is, I also have the benefit of being pretty much invisible to these frickers. Even though this really is an inflated, ultra-lucky version of S5, the standard variant can still be ridiculously OP. Get wrecked, Crucible. Alright then, I gotta quickly get behind this guy. Otherwise, this nuke could actually end my run. There we go. It was definitely very risky though, I will say. Get wrecked. At last, I get reroll. Unfortunately, said reroll didn't really amount to much, except for maybe Blitz. Alright, time to absolutely crumple apart this giant capital ship. And crumple apart I did. Well, it's just a whole bunch of these swarmlings, and I'm gonna take them out. Funnily enough, the swarmlings were actually took out my shield. Alright then, time to demolish this crab. This crab has been very resilient for most of my attacks. And I do gotta say, it actually stood up to multiple of my barrages. Okay, take back my words. It only stood up to 3 of them. Completely crumpled apart the Glaucus and another champion juggernaut. I find it funny how Dweller is now the most sturdy enemy against these kinds of attacks. Dreadnought obviously stands no chance. I get crumpled in a second. If an enemy has multiple points of being attackable, then it gets crumpled easily. If it's a single 30 unit, then it stands more of a chance, like Seraph and Dweller. Honestly, those 2 are the only boss enemies that I need to be somewhat concerned about. The others, they either aren't tanky enough or they're segmented, and my blast radius takes care of that. Just the homing strike projectiles were enough to take down that champion juggernaut as well. Well, look at that. We now have enough damage to cause over 1,000 damage per missile. We truly have reached obscene levels of power here. If I get just a few emo niches from this, my damage would reach into another dimension. Okay, that was a bit concerning, but I'll just stand firm and let my shield come back. Well, ironically enough, these small fry actually came pretty close to destroying me. Funny how a whole bunch of small critters were actually more threatening to me than many bosses put together. With that being said, it still wasn't enough. Damage numbers are so ridiculous that they're clogging up my screen over and over again. Gotta give props to that Seraph Titan for having a whole bunch of minions be as meat shields, but it was for nothing. Alright, gotta take down these lasers quickly. Those serpents were somewhat threatening, I will say. The second most threatening encounter to me so far. Still no reroll. Then time to destroy this bulwark again. Unfortunately, things happened, and this glorious build could not quite reach 3 million. I could also attribute to this to being very rusty at Nova Drift. But in any case, this was absolutely a build that could have reached over 5 million if I was more experienced and skilled. With that being said, my name is Excalibur Heavy Battlecruiser, and as always, may the forks be with you all.